Welcome everyone to Find Away Voices and Draft to Digital's series of live author events. Today we have with us my co-host, Kevin Tumlinson.
Hello.
I'm Scott Curry, marketing strategist for Find Away Voices, and our guest today is author and marketing maven, MK Williams. Welcome,
Hi.
MK.
Hi, thanks for having me today.
Awesome. So glad to have you. This is great. So what we're doing today is a little bit different than what we've done in the past series of author live events we've had so far this month, celebrating June Audiobook Month. MK has written a series of 12 blog posts, count them, 12 blog posts on how to market audiobooks. And she has gone in deep on all things marketing audiobooks. And today she's going to take us through all of them. You ready for this?
The whole thing.
Yes. And I think
she's quoting verbatim, everyone.
Yeah. And when we were actually brainstorming these, I think we had another
30.
like 8 or 10. Like we had quite a few more. We kind of narrowed it down here. So yeah, I'll start with the first. I'm literally going to navigate over to the Find Away Voices blog and go from there.
Yeah. So if you don't know, it's blog.findawayvoices.com.
Yeah. And so the very first thing is that, and I just kind of want to give a caveat, is that I don't have a magic potion. I don't have a silver bullet. There's no one magical thing that you should be doing. There's no secret that nobody's in on. And it, my experience before I became a full-time author, I actually worked for a major sports marketing brand doing marketing. So I did marketing all day long. I was just trying to get people to sign up for our sporting events. And then when I got home at the end of the day, I didn't want to market my books. I just wanted to write. I just wanted to play. So I learned a lot of these things for book marketing the hard way, the stubborn way. And a lot of it was taking what I was doing in my day job and like, oh, I have to still do it.
I really want to ask then, how much of what you learned and used in your day job translated over to marketing books and audiobooks?
I would actually say 100% of it, because so much of what we ended up doing in my day job was getting to the basics of like, what is unique about this sporting event? Why should somebody sign up for this versus another one of our events in another location or a competitor's event in the same location? What makes this event unique? And so when I think about my books and more specifically my audiobooks, well, what makes this unique? Why should somebody read my book versus a major best-selling, traditionally published book or another indie author's book? Or why should somebody listen to my audiobook as opposed to reading the ebook or reading the print book? And so it's asking yourself those basic questions of, well, why?
Yeah.
Why? And you can have one solid answer to it. You can maybe have 3 unique, positioning statements there. But that was a big theme. And it was also bringing people on the journey. People want to feel like they have a reason to support your business. They have a reason to support your book. And so when I was working for this major sports company, people wanted to feel involved. They were so proud of having participated in these events. They felt connected to a company almost like in a family-like way. And I was like, it's a company. And so for you as the author, it's hard sometimes to think of ourselves as like a one-person company, but we are. And so for the point of view of bringing people on your journey, they want to have a reason to cheer for you. Maybe they don't love your genre, but they love you. They love what you share. They're inspired by you. They look up to you. And so you want to bring them on your journey of creating the book, creating the audiobook, and putting it out there because you're developing a better connection. And really marketing comes down to connections. It comes down to making people feel like they have a reason to keep listening to what you have to say, keep supporting what you're doing, keep buying your books, keep listening to your audiobooks. And that's really, that's the hard part, right? Is like, well, how do I do that? And there's a million little ways to do that.
So what's more important to market then? Is it the books, the work, or is it the author?
I'm going to say the author.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, and I'll give an example. My mom will buy Stephen King's book the day it comes out.
Right.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what
direct
it's
he
about.
may have produced.
Yeah, she's gonna buy it. And I'll say there's a lot of authors out there where, okay, I like the author. Maybe they're trying something new. Maybe it's a pretty much a rewrite of their last 10 books, I'm going to buy it no matter what. And I think as long as people have a reason to believe in the author, and conversely, there's a very popular author from my childhood that has made some controversial statements of lately. You know what? I don't want to read her books anymore. Yeah. And so regardless of whether I still like the quality of her writing and I like the stories, I don't want to support her anymore. And so I think it comes down to that. And that's not necessarily to say that authors shouldn't be speaking their mind and shouldn't be putting their thoughts and beliefs into their books. It's always in our books, but it's just, okay, that's maybe somebody I don't want to support. So I think it always comes down to the author over the book. Now, it's really tough when you're starting out as an indie author. Nobody knows who you are. So that's tough, but that's kind of that quiet determination of you're showing up every day, you're doing the work, you're doing the little things. And if you build it, they will come.
Hey, real quick, I want to tell everybody I'm seeing some really great questions popping up. I know Scott was probably just about to do this, but put your questions in that little questions tab in the bottom right corner so that we can find them later. So great questions. There's been some really good ones come through. And also, hey, to all my fellow Texans out there, man, there's a big bunch of us in this webinar. So anyway, didn't mean to interrupt. Let's continue on. Scott, you talk now.
No, I was just going to say the same thing. But MK, you're right. I have a experience in big brand marketing as well. Dealing with global brands and things like that. The author's at the center of that. And especially if you're an author that writes in multiple genres. We had Jamie Davis on, and he does multiple genres, and he talked about some of those challenges as well. Do you have any? Yeah, it was a great interview. Yeah. So those of you that are watching today, go check out the Jamie Davis interview on our YouTube channel. MK, do you have any advice for any authors that are doing multiple genre stuff? Because this was a topic that, in building your author brand, your approach to that, because you do nonfiction and fiction, correct?
Yes.
How have you approached that?
So I have 2 lists. I have what I call my fiction list, and I have my nonfiction list. So my nonfiction is really around my Author Your Ambition brand. That's all about how to self-publish, how to market your books, how to go wide, all those things. And so my fiction readers, not all of them want to be authors. Not all of them want to be self-published authors. And so I do try to separate that. So I'm going to tell my nonfiction brand, I'm going to tell them about what's going on in that brand. I'm going to tell them what's going on in fiction, because it's like, yeah, I am an author. That's how I know these things. Here's how I figured it out. But for my fiction brand, for that list, I'm just telling them about book updates, what I'm working on, what I'm writing. Now, even within my fiction, I write in multiple genres. I know I should do better, but you know what? Like, I want to write what I want to write. And so I just make it really clear. And I say, hey, like, this book is sci-fi, multiverse, action. Like, if you're into that, great. If you are really just here for my like domestic thriller suspense, like, that book's still available. I'm not really working on another one, but here's this. And I always say, like, if this isn't for you, maybe it's for a friend, So a great way to support me as an author is, even if you feel like this isn't your genre or this isn't your specific cup of tea, let somebody else know, because that continues to support me as an author until I write another book that's up your alley. And so I just kind of put that out there up front with them to let people know.
You bring up a great point. Audiobooks are an awesome gift, guys. Like, giving audiobooks to people are fantastic. We've got a great blog post on just how to do that too. So your second post here, audiobook marketing begins now. It's all about bringing, your fans along with the journey. Your second one was about give them a bonus. Yes. So as an indie author, you're going to make your audiobooks and Findaway Voices Marketplace. You upload your manuscript. Remember, if you want to do bonus content, you got to have that dialed up and ready, right?
Exactly. And I think that's almost a good activity. You're going to get to a day when you are working on your book. Maybe it's in manuscript form. Maybe you're working on some of the formatting and publishing, and you're just going to be like, I can't do it today. The words aren't coming. And that's a great day to think about, well, what could I do that's a bonus content?
I like that.
Is this bonus content for pre-order? Is this bonus content after pre-order? Is this bonus content? Where in the phase is it going to be? And what is it going to be? Is it this original opening that I scrapped? And maybe it's not perfect, it's not polished, but you know what? That kind of would be a fun extra. Is it a deleted scene? Is it character backstory? Is it maybe an intro to the next book? And things like that. So it is nice to give a bonus. And I am sure some authors listening like, I don't have time to make more content.
I know, right? Yeah.
It's totally fine. You don't have to do it. It's an option. And that's why I said there's a million little things that you can be doing. And it's impossible to do them all. It's
Yeah.
impossible to do a fraction of them. So pick the things that work for you, that feel right for you. And for me, even I have a series of books that book 2 just came out earlier this year. So the Infinite, and Alpha Nina. I decided the bonus for the Infinite was going to be when you finish listening to the audiobook, you can listen to the first chapter of the Alpha Nina. Great. It's a little bonus. It kind of lets you know what's happening next. And hopefully then people want to listen to the next book. Well, I didn't have that for like 2 years. So I only recently added it. So that's one of the benefits of being an indie author, is that you can go back in and you can add those things later. So yes, obviously wasn't there when I was doing pre-order for the Infinite or initial promotions, but I was able to add that in later. So, take some of the pressure off yourself. It doesn't have to be picture perfect the day your book launches.
Yeah.
Right.
You can add it later.
We had a little discussion before we came on air about imperfect launches.
Yeah.
And I think that's worth digging into a little, okay? Because you said it. Not every launch goes perfect. Even for those of us who this is what we, aside from the writing, this is what we do, is the marketing stuff. And sometimes we don't get it right. What's your advice on that?
My advice is, I don't know a single author who has done their launch perfectly with all the things that they envisioned for it, right? Maybe along the way, they're like, I need to scale this down. I need to scale this all the way down. That's totally fine. And what I always tell the authors that I work with is that you have your entire life to market this book. Yeah. So if the day the book comes out, that's the day that the car tire goes flat, your dog gets sick, your mom gets sick, your mother-in-law gets sick, do what you need to do for your family first and get your car tire fixed. And then you can go ahead and keep focusing on the book later. I actually shared this on my channel this past year. When my second book came out, it was set to release on October 26th. My dad passed on October 23rd. And so I wasn't even in a mental state to put anything out like, hey, my book's still launching. At that point, you can't cancel your pre-order. And so that just happened. And so what do you do? Okay, well, I took time. I figured things out. And so I actually re-released one of the stories as a standalone 5 years later, because it felt the right thing to do to my story. I wanted to honor my story. I do still want to honor my dad, and I've dedicated books to him, but I obviously was not going to have a perfect launch. I wasn't going to have any kind of launch. And so life happens, and I want authors to give themselves permission to have an imperfect launch. Make your dream list, make your wish list, and then see what works, see what happens. And you can always add those things back in later. You can always say, hey, I'm celebrating 1 year of my book, and almost make it like a relaunch and kind of do more of those things.
They say that life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. So
so true, Kevin. Really is. So MK, next up in the series, you had your cover art. And Kevin and I talk about this all the time with authors. We talked about this in our last session, the importance, your number one marketing thing is your cover, right?
Yeah.
So take us into, cover art a little bit. Yeah, we'll touch on this briefly. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I would say, beyond just the audiobook, the cover for the entire collected work, right? Ebook, print books, audiobooks, it should be cohesive. It should look like they belong together and they match. There are a lot of really great designers out there. There are a lot of really great design services out there. And I would say as an author, I like to work with people who know books. I like to work with people who know self-published books, because then they know the formats, they know what different platforms require for uploads based on sizing, based on color. And then they can usually make a whole suite for you in one go. I would say if you're watching this, you have an audiobook or you plan to do an audiobook, but if you're just thinking, this sounds like a lot, I'm just going to do the ebook and print, or I'm just going to do ebook and maybe I'll do an audiobook a while from now. Do I really need to get the audiobook cover now? Get the audiobook cover. Even if you think, nope, probably not going to happen, can't afford it, whatever, have it just in case. Right. It's always good to have, because these services will do that as part of their packages. But if you try to go back later, they might say, oh, well, I got to go find your files. I got to charge you extra. If it's already in their package, get it no matter what. So you can have that. I actually started I I have a to-do list I know to add to all of mine, but I've started for a few to add author narrated versus AI narrated, just to be super clear.
Yeah.
So I have to go finish that. So if you go look at my books now, it doesn't have it. Maybe in like a week or two it will.
Put your narrator on the cover too. A lot
Absolutely.
of authors do that because narrators have their own followings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's true.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, and you make a good point, MK, because the whole artwork thing. If you can, you should try to. A lot of these designers, it may cost you a little extra sometimes, but a lot of the designers will provide like the original source files for these things. If you ask for them up front. If you ask for them like months later, they're going to ask you to pay a lot more money. So it's good to make a list of everything you know you're going to need, and then ask for it up front. And if they say that's extra, then at least you know up front.
Yep. Absolutely. And I always like, a lot of times somebody will go with a recommendation from somebody else. Like, okay, I'm just going to go with them. I say, price it out, look around a little bit, because different services will offer different things in their package, like including the source file, giving you maybe even social media creative, and things like that. So whatever can get you the best value for your limited indie author dollars.
So real quick, you said, okay, because you write across multiple genres, and by the way, never apologize for writing across multiple genres. That's you, right? You're marketing you anyway, right? So how do you keep covers cohesive across the different genres? How do you make sure the readers know that's an MK book?
So for my Author Your Ambition series, they're all similar. I mean, if I kind of see.
Is that what we're looking at behind you?
Yes, these three back here on my nonfiction brand.
Very
and they
cohesive.
Yes, they look very similar. Whereas my fiction, it is specific to the genre. So I'm going to do the thing. Okay. So obviously my science fiction time travel series looks a little spacey, looks a little nerdy, versus my domestic thriller, which like more matches that genre. So it looks specific to its genre, not necessarily MK Williams. Obviously my name is on them. I have my publisher logo on the spine, and things like that. So that's a distinguishing feature, but they don't all look the same. Like I think of an author like V.E. Schwab, like, it's a V.E. Schwab book when you see that cover. You don't even need to see her name on it. But she always writes nebulously within the same genres. So I kind of write a bit more different. So I just kind of went with what was best for the genre, not necessarily for my author branding, except for the publisher logo on the spine.
People are browsing in that genre. You want to look like you belong within it, right?
Right. That's a very important note, by the way. You should always look at other books that are similar to yours and see how well your book fits there.
And maybe reach out to those authors if you like a cover and say, hey,
authors are very guarded about their designers. I don't know why. They don't want to share that designer because they'll get booked up and they may not be able to.
And then the rates go up.
Yeah, and the rates go up.
Right?
So, which is bad news for the designers.
So behind the cover, the second most important marketing thing is the blurb, right?
Absolutely.
Blurb, right? We talked about
absolutely. And obviously, as authors, we wrote the whole book. I'm like, I gotta write something else. So an author can write 100,000 words on, this world they made up, and you ask them to write 2 paragraphs about their book. They're like, I can't contain that. And
I just spent 100,000 words writing that.
Read the book, then you'll know. And so the blurb is always the most difficult. The nice thing about blurbs is you can optimize them. So, if you write it and maybe it's not working, you can optimize it. We did have a note in that blog post to distinguish it for the audiobook. So to be able to say like, hey, narrated by so-and-so, or like, oh, this is like, you're going to hear multiple voices. You can add that in, and that adds and makes it slightly different from the ebook or the print book experience. And especially if you have a bonus, put that in your blurb, because people may not always remember whatever your marketing was for it. So you want that reminder there. Again, obviously there's entire podcasts, there's shows, there's books on how to optimize your blurb for keywords and things like that. And you should be doing that too. But you want to make sure it's to the point. It'll catch somebody's attention and that it's honest. I've read some blurbs after I read a book and I'm like, that was nothing about what that book was about. So I guess if it hooks people the right way. But that's something to keep in mind. And I would say, again, as an author, you have your entire life to market this book. If you don't love your blurb, change it, optimize it, find something new and different, test it. Now, obviously, if you're a wide author, you have a few more platforms to update it on. A good checklist will never do you wrong in that case. I have a reminder that pops up for me every 90 days to optimize my blurbs. It doesn't happen every 90 days.
But it's there to remind you.
It's there to remind you.
I do that too. Yeah.
Right.
So do you when you say optimize, are you looking at it in terms of like search engine optimization and things like that? Or are you
more just taking a look at it and saying, like, is this really the best way to describe this book? Did it, now that I have more space from when I wrote it, if I had to describe this book to somebody, as I have more books, people say, oh, which one would I like? I'm like, oh, I'd actually describe this book this way. And I think this would better capture the excitement of where I want people to come in at. So yeah, you can change it. And I like to say, if you are going to create a new one, don't look at your old one. Create something new, because if you look at the old one, you're going to think, well, this one works. That's something I kind of started doing by accident. I used to keep a swipe file of all the different blurbs and everything. And then when I had a promotion, I'd go and grab it. One thing that's been interesting is I'll get these promotions that say, give me 50 words about the book, but don't use the book description, and that's an opportunity to reinvent. I do it on the spot each time, reinvent the story. And sometimes that stuff is really good, and I take and copy that and go put it in the book description. So,
yeah,
absolutely.
I've done the same thing, and reviewers have also really helped me rewrite my book blurb as well. I've had some reviewers describe the book better than I described it. I've gone back in and, like you, Kevin, I keep a swipe file of just all the ways I've described my book. And it makes it really easy when you go on a podcast or something. Just grab one that works. Yeah, it's really nice.
But we're writers. We should be writing, and we should be taking every opportunity to write.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, now let's get into the part where we're not writing, not being designers, the pricing of the audiobook. So the numbers part. So
I'm a numbers nerd, so I always like this part. And I will say my big disclaimer every time I talk about pricing is that pricing is a strategy. A strategy is something that you think on, you kind of noodle over it, give it some time. Do I still like that? Do I not? Before you actually put it into place. And you should review that strategy periodically, as in maybe annually. Pricing is not something you want to change on a whim. It is not something panic button. I haven't had any sales all week. Change all my prices. Discount on everything. Because that's not a strategy. That's a panic. And I don't want you to panic. Because there will inevitably be days or weeks where the sales just aren't coming. And then there'll be days where you're like, whoa, I don't know what happened, but I got sales. And so your pricing first and foremost, you don't set your pricing. Your market sets your price.
Right.
And so the market is what the reader or the listener is willing to pay for your book, whether it is renting it through a subscription service, whether it's purchasing it outright. Now, you may think, but I see other people setting prices differently. And that may be either the price that they've set, that may be the retailer may be discounting that product, because an algorithm is saying, if you discount this 17 cents, we should get 5 more sales. So there's a lot going on there. So pricing is, take a look at your competitors, what they are pricing, and you need to decide, do you want to be on par? I want to be the same price as everybody else who I want to be compared to. I want to be middle of the pack because I don't want to stand out. Or you say, you know what? I want to be a little competitive. I want to then be a couple dollars below because then more people are going to buy. Or do you say, you know what? I spent a lot of money putting this together. It's a darn good quality. I'm going to be a little bit higher because I want people to think, oh, must be something really good about this if it's a little bit pricier, because there are people who think that. They think more expensive equals better. And so those are your 3 options. And then you go and set your price. What I love about Find Away Voices is when I go and price it, they say, a lot of books in your genre are priced in this way instead. You sure? And I'm like,
we have all that proprietary data, and we do a calculation based on your length of book.
Yeah, but don't give me options when I've already made my decision. That one's hard.
Yeah,
that was like, I hate second guessing myself.
And you want to talk about retail versus library a little bit too, MK?
Yes. So, and retailers versus platforms, I could probably just talk about that for a whole hour. Okay, so your retailers, that is the actual front-facing storefront where people will purchase your audiobook. So if you think of audible.com is a retailer, Find a Way Voices, the platform, can get you there.
Yeah.
Okay. Barnes and Noble Audio is the retailer. Find a Way Voices, the platform, can get you there. So I always like to distinguish those two. So the retailer is going to charge a flat price, right? They're going to say, hey, this book is $9.99. This book is $19.99. Some of them will have subscription models that say it's free with your subscription. Which I always say it's not free. You're paying for it. You're paying your subscription. And so with the subscription model, you get compensated on a per listen, per download basis. So sometimes it seems like it's really small. And you're like, well, only made 99 cents. And so sometimes a library will do that where it's per listening. They're kind of on that subscription model. Okay, per listen. Or they might say, you know what, enough people from our community wanted this audiobook. We're going to purchase it. So it's a much larger purchase from them, but then they're free to loan it out as often as they want. So there's several models that they use. So when you see payments come in from Find a Way Voices, you might be like, oh, that was a big payment. Oh, that was a tiny payment. Oh, it's a big payment. Oh, it's a tiny payment. You're like, these libraries are all over the place. And that's why they have those multiple options depending on their budget, how many people are demanding your book, things like that. So
we basically do all the super complicated stuff, and then you get one royalty check. Yeah.
Super nice.
I know, super nice. Yeah, then that's what we do. Talk about series pricing a little bit, because this is where it gets really cool. Like I'm writing a fiction series right now, and I'm not releasing it until I'm done with 3 books.
Okay.
Basically, because I want to be able to do pricing strategies.
Okay.
Yeah.
So take us into that a little bit, MK.
Yeah. And so there's multiple ways to write a series. And one way is doing it as you're doing. I'm going to write the whole series and then I'm going to release them so people know they're coming. Or some people say, well, I wrote the book and I'm going to write the next book. So check it out. And so I would say if you're doing the method that you're doing, Scott, where you're going to be releasing them in a row, then yes, you want to have a competitive price. And usually by competitive, I mean lower price for that first book. Get people hooked, get them in, and then you can maybe have a higher price for the others. Some people do free for the first book. Some people do 99 cents for the first book. And then, if that's your ebook, and then you're going to scale up your pricing, obviously, for print and audio. Now, for print books, you might say, they're the same because I still have to pay for printing. So I can't make that more competitive. For audiobooks, you can obviously, it's a digital product. You can scale that price down. The idea being that that's your loss leader, right? So you may be in the red as far as the development and time to make book 1, but then books 2 and 3, as people continue through the series, they're going to be paying full price, and that is going to make the entire series profitable. You could do what I've done, where I write the first book and I say, don't worry, I'm working on the next book. Stay tuned. And so I've then decided, okay, as more books in my series come out, then I can go back and adjust the pricing for book 1, for book 2, etc. But just knowing that I have to go back and do that later. And then obviously the audience is kind of like, well, what happens?
Yeah.
So it's up to you as the author, what works for your creative process, what works for timing for you. But it's always, again, those little tasks to keep in mind of like, okay, the next book in the series came out, go back to this book and discount the price and market it here and all that magic. But there's definitely a strategy to that. There's also you saying like, nope, you can pay full price for the whole series.
Right.
That's an option too. So it's nice to have more products to play with for your IP to be able to maximize the price and test that out.
Yep. Now, do you simultaneously release your audio, and print at the same time?
In a perfect world.
In a perfect world, you maximize.
So you would recommend it, but it's not necessarily something you end up doing.
It's something we recommend.
I do recommend it. I usually recommend for my final step before I send the book, my ebook for formatting, for print formatting, is I read the book aloud. It's my final chance because reading it aloud. Now I also read it aloud with my husband sitting next to me to say, you just said the word that's not on the page. Did you mean this word or that word? Because your brain will complete incomplete sentences, incomplete thoughts, because your brain. So having somebody kind of check me. So I will read it out loud to make sure I'm catching anything. You know what? I use that word 5 times. Let me change that. Those little things that you just don't catch reading it with your eyes, reading it aloud, you catch it. And so my most recent step has actually been like, I'm just going to record the audiobook. I'm reading it out loud. I'm going to have to read it out loud again later. So I try to record it at that point. So then I have the entire time that I'm waiting for print formatting and ebook formatting to edit my audiobook. And again, in a perfect world, it's all ready to go day one. I now have an almost 20-month-old baby girl.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen. So I say it's great if you can get them all on day one, because then all of your readers have all the options they could want. However you like to read a book, wherever you want to get a book from, it's there. And then you can also do the advanced listener copies as well. But if you can't, guess what? Then you have something to say about your book a month later, 2 months later, 3 months later, when you're releasing that next format. So that, again, it's like, yes, perfect world, cool, do this. If you can't, like, you can find a way to spin it to your advantage.
I like your attitude on that. That is, to me, that's the right way to market. Is that there's no missed marketing opportunity. There's just a deferred marketing opportunity. I love it.
Exactly.
You're such a genius, MK. I'm going to learn at your feet.
So we had a couple questions here about marketing audiobooks specifically, and that takes us nicely into the kind of your next post, which we're about halfway through, which was audiobooks in your website. So something that we see, Kevin, MK, and I, all the time is that authors don't make audiobooks prominent on their site.
Yeah.
So
that's true. I don't. That's a good point. I'll be right back.
Pulling up WordPress right now, Kevin, right? Yeah.
So that's something I specifically started doing on my website, maybe like 2 or 3 years into my author journey, is I have a specific, if you go under books, fiction books, nonfiction books, audiobooks. So people they can listen to a snippet from it. It has all the different links so they can find it. And so it's a way just to give people an added place to find it. So again, if people are following you, the author, maybe they read one of your books, they picked it up at a little free library in their community. Somebody recommended it to them. Somebody handed it to them, and they said, "Well, it's pretty good. I want to check out their other stuff." And they go to your website and they look at that because, again, they're following you, the author,
right?
And your brand. You want them to see all those options, and they may not necessarily think when you're listening, "Oh, it could be an audiobook," but then when they see it, they're like, "Oh, sweet! I have an hour-long commute every day," or "Oh, this is great. I'm really just doing audiobooks now while I'm gardening or doing house chores. This is perfect. I'm always looking for a good one. Oh, cool. It's on my local library. Oh, cool. It's on Scribd and I have a subscription and it's on Libro FM or anything like that." So it's nice to list that out specifically, because there are people who are audiobook listeners who maybe don't identify as book readers. They're like, "No, I don't have time to read, but while I'm doing my other stuff, I can listen to an audiobook," and things like that. So they're two different parts of the same.
Yeah. They're very different audiences. So having that audiobooks right in your main navigation, go a really long way to say.
Yeah, that's a very good point. They are two different markets. And that means that you are, if you're only advertising your ebooks or print books on your website, you're actually neglecting a market.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, and in one of our earlier interviews, one of the authors spoke about how she segments her email list with audio and readers. So she actually has an audio segment to her email list.
That's pretty clever.
Fans that identify as, I want to hear the audio version.
Yeah.
So that works out really well. Yep. And you're gonna want to have snippets too, some samples. Yes.
And so whenever you're uploading, you actually have to provide a retail audio sample when you're uploading to Find Away Voices. It has to be between 1 minute and 5 minutes. I usually like them on the shorter end, because then I take that same clip and I go into SoundCloud and I make myself a little snippet to put on my website. So it's just enough to tease somebody. Now, some people say I use whatever is the first X many minutes of the book. That's what I want people to hear. Some people say, no, I think there's like a really suspenseful scene or something that really highlights the narrator's talents. It's truly up to you what you feel is that best snippet. But I do like having that on my website as well. They don't have to wait till they get to the retailer to listen to it. They can listen to it from my website.
Yeah, I like to make the recommendation, same with Will Dagus, head of Voices, that you should approach your retail sample as a marketing opportunity. Not just take, part of the book and put it into it. Talk about it, write it, unique for that, show off those characters and really bring someone into what they're going to get into listening to the book. So
I'm dropping a link to my audiobooks page just so people can peruse it and rip it apart and say it needs to be
Nobody's
sure
going to rip
it's
anything
optimized,
apart.
but, yeah. But you can kind of see how I done. But absolutely, that being able to listen helps, obviously, for an audiobook.
That's very cool. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. That's cool.
Yep.
Looks all right. What are you using, like on a technical standpoint, for placing those clips? Is that something built into your? Are you using like WordPress or something for your
I
site?
use
or-
WordPress, yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's a very easy to use WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. Editor. There are sometimes want to do harm
Yes.
to it if it's not getting to work just right.
Yes.
In my corporate day job, before I became a full-time author, I did have to know HTML for emails and for basic websites. So when it isn't doing what I want, I'm like, switch HTML.
Yes. See, that's a skill. Everybody should cultivate that skill.
Yeah. So I know how to finagle it a little bit. And the nice thing is that I can also just copy from one book, and I just copy it down, and I kind of switch the elements. So it makes it easier as I add more on.
What I want everyone watching and listening, though, to take away from this is that you're using a skill to do certain things, but you don't have to be highly technical or skilled to do this. There are little plugins and things that you can get no matter what platform your website is on. I use Squarespace. It's got some built-in audio stuff. So what you need to do is just sort of Google, like, you know, audio clips on this platform, and you know, look at some YouTube videos or ask somebody for some help. But it doesn't have to be a barrier. You can get that stuff on there.
Absolutely. I think a lot of authors think they have to pay somebody to design a website for them, and maybe if they truly feel like I don't want to touch it, absolutely. I'm sure I could pay somebody to make mine look a million times nicer. But it's functional, it's easy to understand, and that's ultimately what you want. You want the person who lands on that page to understand where they are, what they can do, and then make their purchase.
Right. And the person landing on that page does not care whether you are a coder and you did everything all on your own. They don't care. They just want to be able to find your books, learn about you. Yeah.
Yep.
For sure. I popped a nice little example in there. Author Kate Nolan. I love her audiobooks page. That was in your blog post. She does a really nice layout there. It's
Absolutely.
a lot of fun to go through her catalog. So, you know, the voice behind the book, the narrator, we had a question here in the audience about, you know, the promoting the narrator and the author. You know, what's your take on, you know, leveraging your narrator as part of your marketing efforts?
I think that's super important with the audiobook, to Kevin's point, to specifically talk about the audiobook, not just about print or ebook, but to say, hey, we're creating the audiobook. And that's what I mentioned earlier about bringing somebody along with your journey. Maybe you are trying to launch the audiobook simultaneously. Maybe it's been 2 years and you finally have earned back what you invested in creating the book, and you think, now's the time. I'm making the audiobook. So, hey, I'm auditioning narrators. Do you know anybody who's good? Wow, I just heard the first clip from my first audition. Blew my mind. Okay, I picked my narrator. Stay tuned next week. We're doing a narrator reveal, similar to like a cover reveal. Wow, you know, here's the clip from this person. They're going to be my narrator. So excited to work with them. This is the other books they've worked on. Check out their other work. So cool. Wow, here's another sample that I got. They're crushing it with this accent. You know, whatever it is, and kind of bring people along the way with you, because again, that gives you something to talk about. Like, selfishly, it gives you something to talk about to get people excited for your audiobook. Selfishly, you are, you know, giving them some kudos on social media, wherever you're posting this. Hopefully they're going to give some love back to you and say, hey, I have another book that's coming out. It's with this author. And then you're getting out to their audience of people who, hey, like to listen to the audiobooks they narrate, regardless of whether that's your genre or not. Now, I'm sure some narrators are very specific by genre, and some are like, I like different things. So it's really nice to be able to get you to get additional amplification. That was the word I was looking for. Amplification for your books.
Good word.
Yeah.
Amplification. It applies because it's audio. See how brilliant MK is? She just wrapped it all up in a nice little bundle.
Yeah. So, got a question here, MK, from James Wood. How do I learn marketing if I'm really introverted?
Okay. So I hear this question a lot, actually, from somebody like, I'm introverted. I don't feel comfortable marketing. I feel the same way. Every time I am about to say, hey, check this out, or I did this, I question myself, I doubt myself, because it was so easy to market, for the brand I worked for. That was their thing. It's so easy for me to share my friends' books and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. They've worked so hard. Go check this out. And in mine, I'm like, hey, maybe if you have some time to think about it, if it doesn't bother you too much, you can check this out. I feel the same way. And what I would say is own that feeling of being introverted. Put that in there. Hey, I'm usually super introverted. I don't share a lot, but this means a lot to me that I worked hard on this book and this audiobook, and it would mean so much to me if you would check this out or share this. Because that kind of genuine, authentic, like, hey, I'm super nervous, and can you just like this just so I feel a little bit less nervous? Maybe you don't even have to buy it, but like this to make me feel better. That so many people identify with and connect with. It seems like there's more extroverts. It's just because they're louder. I would say more people maybe feel that introversion and that shyness and that aversion to anything considered salesy or marketing, and own it. And you will find so many authors who are like, I feel the same way. I'll go buy it because I feel the same way. And I want to support you and make you feel welcome. So I think own it, step into it, because you're going to find so many other people feel the same way. And then you can make that genuine connection with other introverted authors and maybe like help support each other, an introverted author support group.
Yeah. The least talkative group you're ever going to find.
So the advice there is to be authentic, be real.
Absolutely.
Be who you are. Yeah. Be your own brand.
I think that is good advice, no matter what area of life you're approaching. Be yourself, be authentic.
Yep.
So.
And that kind of brings us nicely into email. This is something Kevin and I have talked a lot about with all the other authors in this series. Email marketing, you own the list. There's no algorithm in front of it. Talk a little bit about, the way you approach email marketing, your formula, being that brand authentically to your fans. What's your take on email marketing?
So I think I do get some eye twitching just from my days corporate having to do email marketing. Still, like, it's one of the things, it was my job and I was really good at it. And I still hate doing it. Like, it still makes me like, this is a job. Author's fun.
Yeah.
And so for me, I try to send out once a month. And I know some authors are like, only once a month? I only have things to say once a month. Like, I'm working on the book. I changed some diapers.
Yeah.
Guess what I'm going to do next week? I'm working on my book. I changed some diapers.
Yeah.
There's only so many ways to say it. And so for me, I send out once a month. And if there's ever a time where I know maybe a launch is coming up or I'm going to have something special, I tell people, I'm like, hey, you're going to get a few extra emails from me this month, or you're going to get an extra email from me this month. And that's it. And if that doesn't work for you, that's fine. I own it. I'm upfront about it. I know there are a lot of people who engage in like the email swaps. And I don't think that's what's going to get you a genuine connection with people who are now joining your list. I tested out a service that allowed people to do that. I had a lot of people who subscribed. But I suddenly had an unsubscribe rate.
Yeah.
So long, again, I had this small, very engaged list, and I never got unsubscribes because they were engaged. Suddenly I'm doing these email swaps. Oh, they all went up. Oh, they all unsubscribed because they did something free, and that's what they got. And so instead of saying, hey, this person over here is genuinely my friend in the author community, and when they have a book come out and I'm excited for them, I'm going to tell people about it. And when I have a book come out, they're going to genuinely tell people about it and how long we've talked about it and worked on it and workshopped it together. And so that is more authentic than just oh, hey, you do Sci-Fi too, cool, can you promote my book? Okay, bye, I'll promote yours. And I'm going to do 5 extra emails this month just to fit those in, because people get annoyed by extra emails. And I just don't think it's a long-term strategy for building a genuine list that's engaged with you and wants to hear from you. I think it's a way to have a short-term up and then back down.
Yep. So you what's your email content look like, MK? Kind of describe how do you engage your email audience? I know I subscribe to your list, so I know what it is, but tell everyone else.
Yeah. So for my nonfiction list, I try to break it up. I do a quick little author's note at the top, just like, what are my thoughts this month? What's going on this month? Anything that like kind of pertains to my writerly life. And then I've been highlighting either a client who I'm helping them with their books, or people who are members of my YouTube channel. I'll highlight them, and then I'll kind of mix it up with news that I've seen that's particularly interesting. So usually it'll be like news, and then if there's anything that's like promoting my books, promoting anything that somebody has to buy, whether I'm like, hey, I use this product and it's super awesome and you should check it out. I always put those in gray. So those are going to be distinguished as like, hey, like if you're interested, here it is. But the rest, I kind of find like maybe 2 or 3 good news stories or just updates on things going on. And that's what I send out. For my fiction, same thing. I kind of do top line, here's where I am with my books. And I've actually, because I have multiple projects, I'm like this project, status, kind of updates, and then sending that out. So I keep it short and sweet. It is white background and black text. Because it's easy to load on everybody's email platform. I know sometimes people want to have put this graphic and that graphic. Easier is better, in my opinion. I'm sure I could do more testing and optimization with it, but again, then my eye starts to twitch.
Yeah, you don't want that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Well, I can say I love your emails. I love getting all the author emails. I sign up for 1 million author emails. Try to open them all.
That's good. They're so appreciative that they're getting opens from you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's really interesting how every author approaches it. Widely different, you know. I mean, that's why we asked this question, you know, to hear how you approach it. So we've got about 15 minutes left, and save the last 15 minutes for kind of the most important part, what the blog series led up to, which is building your launch team. You actually did 2 posts, part 1 and part 2. So why don't you take us through building a launch team, part 1?
Yeah. So part 1 is actually getting the list of people who want to be your advanced reader copy ARC readers or your advanced listener copy ARC listeners. And so I've seen authors make the mistake of, I have 1,000 people on my email list. My book is done. I uploaded it everywhere. Hit send on everybody on my email list so they can be an ARC reader.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah.
No.
That's
No.
So just because somebody is subscribed to you does not mean that they would want to be an advanced reader or advanced listener. That they will be, you know, an advanced reader or listener. So I always say that to your group, you should say, hey, this is now available. If you would like to be an early reader or an early listener, please fill out this form here. By doing this, you're committing to reading or listening by this date, leaving an honest review, and, you know, being my hype team, being my hype squad, helping me share social media posts and things like that. And so I would say it's better to have a dozen, maybe even fewer, dedicated ARC readers and listeners than to have 100 people who just take a free copy and ghost you, because they ghosted you. And now they won't buy the book because they have it for free. And so people on your list are probably interested in your book, but they might be like, I don't have time to read that right now. Stuff's going on in my life. Yeah, I'll get to it. I have a huge TBR. Like, you don't just want to assume that they want to read it by this deadline that you're going to give them. So I always do a separate form for people to sign up with. And then they can pick, I want EPUB, I want Mobi, I want PDF, I want access to the audiobook, whatever it is, and then you can get that to them. Now, if you're collecting names long ahead of when it's available, I always send a secondary email to say, hey, you said you wanted to be an early reader. Is that still the case? Yes or no? If so, again, here's the parameters of when I need you to review this by. You're agreeing to read or listen, leave the review, and just kind of be on my hype squad. So lets people know, and then you send it to them. I always ask them to respond to say, yes, I got whatever the attachment was, because sometimes attachments don't come through. And then just follow up. I follow up with them a week before publication, follow up with them on publication day. And then if I still have heard nothing, then 2 days after. That's it. And then if they need to go on the naughty list and not get an ARC copy again, then they go on the naughty list. But usually, you know, they're writing back, oh, so excited. Oh yeah, I totally forgot. I'll post that review today. So again, it gives you a chance to engage with them.
Nice.
Yeah. But don't just hit send to everybody on your email list. Don't do it.
Yeah, that's just a bad idea all around. I would not advise that. I can't think of anybody who would advise that.
And I think some authors just get so excited. They're like, it's done. And I need early readers and reviewers. Let me send it to everybody.
Yeah.
No.
I have my street team. I have my team of people.
That has a street team. Yeah.
Take it to the streets.
Take it to the streets. I like calling them a street team rather than like beta readers or ARC readers because it sounds hip. There's so little about me that's hip, and so I just want to embrace it.
Kevin, oh man, you're always good for that. You crack me up, man. I've loved doing these with you. So launch day is finally here, MK. What's it look like? What's launch day look like?
I mean, obviously you're going viral.
Yeah.
Your
Mhm.
closing
Obviously.
calls from GMA and
Millions
the
and
TA.
millions of books sold.
Yeah.
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 No, I would say, launch day, it's very exciting. Have your very specific hit list. I would say if you're the person who's like, I usually don't have time to do my book work until the evening,
Yeah.
this is the day to, not feeling, I gotta come into work a little late today.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, this is the day you want to get on. You want to make sure you're doing those early posts, those early thank yous.
Yeah.
This is a day to really focus on that gratitude for everybody who got you here.
Yep.
It is not the day to sit there and refresh your rankings
Nope.
hourly. I know you want to. I know you're
Yeah.
probably going to do it anyways. Don't do it. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
Give those thank yous out, especially to your street team and your ARC readers, like give them those thank yous. That's a number one priority that day. And make sure you're celebrating. Every author I work with, I'm constantly telling them, be sure to celebrate. And you want to celebrate along the way, but especially on launch day, because like we said, like there's always more marketing work to do. There's always so
Yes.
many things to do. And you're going to just be thinking about, well, I didn't do this and I didn't do this and I didn't hit this list that I thought I would. And I didn't see these sales that I thought, like, no matter what, there's always that excitement and like a little bit of disappointment, like
Yeah.
that sweet, like, but it didn't go viral. Like, well, that wasn't a realistic goal.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you have some kind of a celebration plan. This can be an all out, like I'm throwing a party with champagne. This can just be like, I'm going to have my favorite dessert tonight. Whatever it is that makes that day special to you, make it special. Give that gratitude to your ARC readers and your street team. And then the next day, you get back to work. You get back to work writing the next book or continuing to market it. But like launch day is special. Make sure you celebrate.
Yeah.
Make sure you celebrate.
Yeah. Yeah. Throw a party.
That's good advice. Nobody
Yeah.
ever does that. Nobody, it's all about hustle,
Yeah.
Forget celebrating. You got to write the next book like right now
Yeah.
or do more marketing.
Time.
Or it kind of feels anticlimactic. You're like, well, I did all this work months ago when I uploaded it. Like I didn't do any work today.
Right. If you don't reward yourself for small successes and large successes, then your brain tells you there's no benefit to doing this. And that's what makes it harder to come back to that page every single day. You have to celebrate even the small victories. So absolutely on board with you, MK.
Yeah, me too. So we've got couple giveaways here for those that have stuck around.
All right.
We
thank you. I've been looking forward to something. I mean,
well, not for you. For our listeners here. We Find Away Voices have partnered with bookmachine.org, wonderful organization based in the United Kingdom. And I want to just randomly pick out a couple people that have been in the chat today. Cheyenne Richards, you have been extra chatty in the chit chat today. So
very helpful.
One of our winners here. And Janet Oakley. Love the enthusiasm in the chat. And thank you for coming on today, Janet and Cheyenne. I'll reach out to you with how to get that Book Machine membership. Great group of folks. You're going to really enjoy the platform and wonderful people that run it over in the UK.
We should work out a way to give something away in every one of these. We're too late, though. We're almost at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, we got one more.
Yeah, we got one more with
We're just going to have to do more. That's all there is to it.
We're going to do more, Kevin. Yeah, we're going to do more. For sure. This has been way too much fun. So I'm looking here in the questions, see if we got any others that we can address real quickly before we end the program today. Let's see here. Donna Allward, when you say add in later, do you mean rehire your narrator to add in bonus content?
So potentially. So I guess if you aren't self-narrating, it would be going back and asking them to do that. If you have an idea of what this bonus content might be, you could always ask them to do that initially, whether it's, a deleted scene, a bonus chapter. And there may be some benefit to saying like, hey, like this was a rough chapter that didn't make it in. Here's me, the author, saying it. And it's bonus, it's kind of a bit more raw. Or maybe at that point you're doing a Q&A, like an interview style. If you feel like, that narrator's moved on to another project, maybe it's more an interview with you, the author, about characters or things like that. If you have the ability and you want to do that, I narrate my audiobooks. So it's kind of easier for me to go in and do that. I would say if you're doing a series, you're probably going to be hiring the same narrator or narrators for the next book. So that might be an add-on, be like, hey, while you're doing this, can you make sure the first chapter is done earlier because we're going to add that to the previous book or something like that. So that's something, again, maintaining a good relationship with the people you work with helps when you have the next book come out and the next book and you want to add bonus content, or you want to go back later and say, hey, I know you're really busy. What would you charge for just adding on like a little bonus content to this? And hopefully, again, if you maintain that good relationship with the narrator, you supported them, they supported you, you can go back and do that easily.
Yeah. Let's see here. Gary McFadden, are there ways to make libraries aware of your titles, or do you leave this to the distributor?
So the distributor is going to make the title available. So it is up to you to market to the library or to market to their library patrons. So I always put out, I have a regular calendar of saying like, hey, if you're on a tight budget, did you know you can get any of my books at your local library? Now I don't say what format. You can get all my formats at a local library. So that's up to that person. Like, oh yeah, I use a library all the time. It's actually really easy. With most libraries to then recommend a book as a patron. I know for me, when I lived in Hillsborough County, Florida here, they have an amazing, amazing author program. I was able to like fill out a form. They did purchase the book. For the print book, they put it in like a special local author section. I had a friend and she's like, I tried to find it and it wasn't in like the sci-fi section. And the librarian was like, oh no, that's in our local authors section. And I was like, oh, that's very fancy. And so you want to let the libraries know. I would say if you live in that community, if you have lived in that community, like maybe you grew up there and you moved away, if you're, it's your hometown, it's easier for you to ask and be like, hey, this is my hometown library. It would mean a lot to me to see the book there. If it's just some random library you have no association with, I would at that point maybe just put it up to the patrons to request the book. Libraries have limited budgets. They're not just going to buy every book that's put out. They need a reason to do it. And so if a patron is asking for a book, they are much more likely to purchase than just like, hey, I'm an author, buy my book. They're like, get in line. So
Yep. Fantastic.
While we were doing the whole van life thing, I would stop in libraries and offer to just chat, come in. I'll come in on Saturday or whatever.
Yep.
And that's a good opportunity. You don't even have to order my books right now. You can just wait.
Well, Kevin, that's a great example of relationship building.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of it is just that hand-to-hand combat, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of the luck of the draw. Some library systems are really open to that, have really great author programming. Some are just inundated with author requests. And they say, I've heard of some person, she was asked to make a $20 donation to the library to do that. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. They must get a lot of author requests. Some are just like, we barely have any budget to keep a librarian on staff. So it's kind of the luck of the draw. So you always want to be respectful for what their challenges are and kind of answer for that, right?
Really great advice, MK. Yeah. Absolutely. We got a question from Donna Allward. What about paid promo? Promo audio, CPC ads, and so on.
So I will say that if you don't have all of the stuff we talked about today in place, if you're not organically mentioning the book, bringing somebody on a journey, if you aren't sending out and trying to build an email list, which most of those services are free to use up to a certain number of subscribers, if you don't have your website set up, if you haven't been organically talking about this, no amount of paid ads are going to help you. If you have no reviews and you're sending paid ad money to a book with no reviews, that's tough because you got to start somewhere. But it's really difficult. And I would say there's a lot of advertisers that are happy to separate you from your money.
Yeah.
And as an indie author, we only have so much budget to go around. And so I don't want to say I'm skeptical or dubious. Like I use, again, working professionally with ad agencies and advertisers, it gets really expensive really fast. And so I feel like if you don't have some of those organic elements together, if you don't have everything put together first, it's going to be a very expensive lesson and needing to go back and do that. So I've dabbled in paid ads, and by dabble, I mean like 1 year I spent $28. The other year I spent 40 something bucks. This year I spent close to $700 on ads, and it was not helpful. And that was me giving it an honest go and making a try of it. And I think there needs to be more authors talking about that. I hear on too many podcasts, oh yeah, I just threw up some ads and then, I hit the bestseller list. I'm like, how much did you spend? Did you pay somebody? So I think there's this myth that ads will fix things. Ads will amplify. So if you are hitting everything with your organic marketing, they will amplify your message. If you are missing things, it will it will make it feel worse.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
That's a
Cool.
good way
Well,
to put it.
speaking of podcasts here, we have one last question from Gary Micheloni. Podcast for audiobook authors, narrators. What do you recommend, MK? You have
So
something you like?
I like to listen to some of the bigger industry or indie author industry podcasts. So I listen to Joanna Penn. I listen to the Indie Author. I listen to the Ally Author, Alliance of Independent Authors podcast. Those are the main three I usually have time for. Like I said before we started, I'm kind of in a content creation season, so I'm way behind on all of my podcasts. But I usually try to pick one or two that help me as the whole author, not just for my audiobook business or narrating, just kind of looking at everything cohesively, because I get too into the minutia. I need some big picture. If you feel like you're too much into the big picture and you need some minutia, there may be other better podcasts out there for you, but I like looking at the bigger picture. And so those podcasts help me come back up for air.
And you accidentally left off Self-Publishing Insiders with Draft Digital on your list.
I did. Apologies.
Just wanted to remind you of how much you love that podcast.
I do. I didn't even mention it because it was so obvious.
Yes, exactly. That's the problem, is we're too obvious.
It's a good one. Yeah. And I love the Ally one too. I love that you bring that up, MK. We're proud partners of Alliance of Independent Authors. Love all their content. I know you're a very proud member of it as well. They do a lot of great work for us as indie authors, right?
Absolutely. They're great.
It's where we unite. So we're at the end of our hour. Thank you so much, MK. Appreciate you coming on today and talking about this. Appreciate you writing this 12 parts blog series for us.
Yeah, absolutely. This was super fun. I feel bad I missed so much of what was going on in the chat, but I'll have to go back and
a lot of it. I mean, there were so many that I've watched relationships form in this chat today. The whole new organizations have arisen. Of introverted authors and people swapping book blurbs and things like that. So you've inspired quite a few people to go and do better marketing.
Ian Page said this hour wasn't long enough. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh.
Gary McFadden, good stuff. Sarah Morsi, thank you. James Wood, this was wonderful. This is really great. Thank you guys.
Awesome. Everybody have a great rest of your week.
Yes.
Appreciate it, Kevin. And we've got one more of these with Kyla Stone.
Yes.
Jump on findawayvoices.com, register for that. It's going to be fantastic. And then we're going to put out some more kind of snippets from all these next month on our social channels. So be sure to follow us at Find Away Voices and follow Kevin and his company at Drafted Digital. And MK Williams, where can everyone find you?
So I'm everywhere online at number one MK Williams. I used to say it's because I'm the one MK Williams. There's actually a second one, but he's a dude. So, it's me when you see the space.
You're looking for number one.
Yes, number one MK Williams. And also I have Author Your Ambition brand. So authoryourambition.com. YouTube is my biggest channel. So just Google or YouTube search MK Williams, Author Your Ambition, and I'll show up.
Awesome.
I like to tell people that we're Draft number 2 digital. We take on that number 2 because we want to make the authors number 1.
Oh, look at you, Kev.
Well done. Well done.
I love it. That's great.
Look for that in our marketing speak from this point forward.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's too good. Well, thanks, Kevin. Thanks, MK. And we'll see everyone with Miss Kyla Stone on Thursday.
Awesome.
And everyone have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, bye.
Take care.
Take care.